Derek and Romaine.
Bitch.
He's Derek.
Now, I like attention as much as the next whore, but I am fine with letting other people be the center of attention.
No, you're not.
Bye, whore!
She's Romaine.
Oh, the day the attention goes away, you might as well just dig the hole. It's what keeps me alive. It's what keeps me young. I need the applause, applause, applause.
This is Derek and Romaine.
2.0, bitches. Applause, 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 Derek. I need it. Right now.
I know you do.
I live
Apparently,
for it.
Romaine's love language is attention. Attention.
You know
attention.
it is. I think it's why I have so many pets, because all I want is all the love. I want all of it all the time. Give me the love. Show me the love.
It is a love time of year here, Derek and Romaine. And we're going to be joined in a few minutes by Edward Yaeger. And Derek and Romaine are going to reveal what our love languages are. And if you're not familiar with love languages, if you've heard the jokes about them, the movie Bottoms had a line in it where one of the women said, my love language is when people are violent on my behalf. That's a messed up love language. Anyway, we'll dig through what the love languages are and the myths about them, and you'll find out a bit more about Derek and Romaine and how we're alike or different with our love languages coming up in just a few minutes. But because this is a season of love, and Romaine does love to talk about sex and sex toys.
I sure do.
I thought we could talk about this woman in Austria.
Okay.
Who recently lost her job.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm nervous. How and why?
Well, the article that I read did not have any names. No names, please. But she is a 47-year-old elementary school teacher.
Right.
In Austria. But the school fired her because they found out, or probably more likely the parents found out, that she was giving sex advice on Zoom
to
people who wanted sex advice.
Students?
No, not elementary school students. I think the general public. That she, like you, as the dildo whisperer, had an interest in providing sex advice and encouraging
education,
people and
yeah.
positive sex situations. And so she labeled herself the Orgasm Pope.
Okay.
And was dispensing sex advice.
And she lost her job for this.
Yes.
I think she should sue.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think that is a reasonable reason for someone to lose a job. It's not against the law, first and foremost, to dispense sex advice.
Well, you don't know what the laws are in Austria.
Well, that's true. I'm going to assume it's not. Let me be more clear about that. I think this has more to do with, people feeling uncomfortable that someone who dispenses sexual advice is also teaching young children. And again, this all boils down to these horrible misconceptions that anyone who's interested in sex is some kind of sexual predator who's going to prey on the young, which clearly it does not sound like in this woman's case. She was advising young people in particular. It sounds like she was just giving, generic sex advice like I would with, say, the Dildo Whisperer podcast. And that would be like saying I couldn't have a job at a daycare because I dispense sex advice on a podcast, right? Like that, the idea of that is so ridiculous because it implies that talking about sex is something negative, it's something shameful, it's something bad. And that's simply not the case. It's what is wrong with sex education in the world today. The fact that we cannot talk about it openly, we cannot talk about something that, by the way, almost all adults participate in some form of their life. Everybody has sex for the most part. I mean, there's some people that don't, but for the most part, people have sex. And the idea that we can't talk about this thing that most people participate in, even in an educational kind of way, is ridiculous. Like it actually makes me mad that this person would be targeted for trying to provide a public service.
Yeah. Well, I mean, plenty of gays been arrested for providing public service in men's rooms. But in this case, she was doing love coaching services. But I think this can happen quite a bit, that people's personal lives and their professional lives can be very starkly different because they want a personal life that is very different than their like a work life. And, years ago, there was an issue where an animated movie was released on, I feel like VHS. So this would have been the 90s.
Right.
And it actually had some porn in it. Like porn got edited into it or was on the video and everything. And sometimes that is, they're making your porn videos and your animated movies in the same facilities.
Sure, and that's true. That does happen.
And sometimes things get mislabeled, whatever. That can happen.
Sure.
But a lot of people who work in children's entertainment want to put their mind somewhere else.
Right.
At the end of the day, because they're thinking up corny jokes for the Disney Channel or, animating whatever, Peppa Pig. And they want, the polar opposite after the whistle blows. And, there's been a lot of sort of talk for years about high-powered Wall Street-y kinds of people who are dominant in their careers, but then want to be submissive
in their sex lives.
In their sex life with like a dominatrix or with their spouse or whatever it is, because it is this is one side of my life over here, and I want the other side of my life to be the polar opposite. So I feel like this may be for her. Look, she spends all day
or she
with
may
little kids.
Just have an interest in sex education and want to help people. Like, I love what I do when it comes to sex education. Derek, because you've known me for a really long time, I've always been very interested in sex education, long before I ever came to radio, frankly.
Well, you were definitely interested in studying sex by sleeping with as many women as possible.
Sure, you could say that.
And then informing the world from your vast experience base.
Well, actually, it goes farther back than that, even, Derek. So, I actually would say that my first years of learning about sex went as far back as to probably when I was like 19, 20. When I was working at the gay coffee shop, I used to sit at the coffee bar and I would talk to the customers. And you could ask my friend Frank, who is a DNR listener and has gone on a couple of Derek and Romaine cruises. He will be on Hot Mex, which I believe we're on right now. Anyway, he's amazing. And I used to spend hours talking to him at the coffee shop about various sex things. I used to ask him lots of questions about like the bathhouses and all the different things that the different gay bars that the gay guys went to and what kind of things happened in different places, because I always found it really, really interesting. So for this woman, it could simply be that she's always had an interest. Maybe she wanted to go to school to be a therapist, but then ended up, in teaching and education instead. Like, you never know what motivates the desire to teach other people. But I don't think she should be punished for providing useful, good information that people have questions about. Like, if there wasn't a need for it, there wouldn't be a reason to dispense the advice. But I can tell you, just in my own experience, there is such a need for sex education in lots of different places, especially here in the United States.
Look, all you have to do is sleep with people, and you know that there is a desperate need for sex education.
I tell you what. So, doing the Dildo Whisperer podcast, which you can get with your DNR Plus subscription, doing the Dildo Whisperer podcast with AJ, who is a straight man in his 30s, has been fascinating for me, because I am sometimes absolutely shocked, and I mean shocked, I'm not even kidding, by how little he knows about various aspects of his own body, of his partner's bodies, of different, sexual safety things, let's say, that you should be practicing. It's shocking to me how little knowledge he has. And this is a man who's been having sex for quite a long time.
can I be
Yeah.
let's be honest for a second
yeah.
here, the real, if we can.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time with our show, we have postulated about why men, this is more very broadly speaking, because it's not everybody, but
Right.
that as a phenomenon, there's lots of men who come out much earlier in life, like as teenagers, early 20s, and then a lot of women who will discover their sexuality and come out later, like in their 40s, 50s. And we've long thought about this of like, what might be behind this? And part of it might be, women unshackling themselves from society's expectations and really putting themselves first for the first time maybe in their life, and realizing, wow, I've put my feelings on a shelf for a long time because, I put other people's feelings and priorities first. Whatever.
Right.
It could be part of women getting older and menopause, like the women's sexuality may change as their hormones change over time. Like, who knows? But it could also, frankly, be that straight men just don't know a lot about sex. And at a certain point, women are like, well, I've been having unsatisfying heterosexual sex for 20 years. These lesbians look like they're having a good time. Maybe there's something here.
Maybe. Possibly. But in all honesty, Derek, it's not just men who don't know about sex. I mean, I'll use my own wife as an example. Iris is not what I would say, super experienced person because she hasn't had sex with a lot of different people, unlike me. But she's had a very limited number of partners. And she grew up in a very religious Hispanic family. And she was not taught about sex and sexuality, like simply wasn't taught about it. Wasn't taught about it in schools. Her mother definitely didn't talk to her about it. Like, she didn't get a good sex education. And as an adult, that is something she is very aware of. She is very self-conscious about her sexuality because she knows she's never really learned about it anywhere.
That's why you've got to say, si habla labia.
Oh my God. How do you know that's exactly what I say?
Isn't that the code phrase for let's get it on?
Yeah. But, I mean, this is just the reality. So for me, I think I welcome more sex educators in the world. I think we need more, not less. I always say to people, would you let your teenager drive a car without teaching them how? And people are always like, of course I wouldn't let them drive a car without teaching them how. And then I'm like, but you won't have a conversation with your teenager about sex? They're going to have it. You're not going to teach them anything? Like, it can be as dangerous as driving a car. It can be as much fun as driving a car, sometimes more. So it's like, you should still teach young people. We need to teach sex education. It drives me bonkers that we don't.
I know.
So please listen to my podcast, The Dildo Whisperer.
Oh, Jesus. That's why you have to keep fighting the good fight and then also making it all about you and your contribution to the world.
Yes, thank you. I agree. But no, I love sex educators. This makes me angry for this woman. She should not have been fired from her job. If anything, she should be celebrated for doing this good service.
Well, I think the upside, social media doesn't always have a lot of upsides.
Right.
But this is a place where I think there is a lot of upside because the publicity that she has gotten around this will probably get a very large number of new clients for her as the Orgasm Pope. And this could actually be ultimately a benefit. She might have been looking for a way to quit her day job and do this full time.
Right.
It sounds like she is an educator at heart.
Yeah.
And it would have been hard for her to make a living as a sex educator, but it was easy for her to get a job as a school teacher. Mm-hmm. But this is where her real passion is. Now will be able to pursue her passion because now she's, definitely famous across Austria, but also famous now around the world because we're talking about her.
Right.
And this will open up great opportunities for her, I think. In the long run, I think this will end up being a net positive for her because it will allow her to pursue her dream in the way that you, moving to New York City to be a slut, also allowed you to pursue your dreams.
That's right. It sure did, Derek. Thank you for
it really did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dreams can come true here
and
on
they
Derek
do.
and Romaine.
And they do.
All right. Well, coming up next, We're going to
so
find out.
ridiculous.
Maybe your dream all along has been to find out even more about Derek and Romaine. And if that is the case,
I think that for most listeners, that is the case. Isn't that why they listen?
yeah. Have we got some good news for you?
Oh, yeah.
Edward Yaeger is going to be with us. We are going to talk about love languages, and you're going to find out we both took the love languages quiz, and we are going to find out what our love languages are and talk all about it coming up next here on Derek and Romaine.
Stay tuned for more Derek and Romaine.
Derek here, along with Romaine, and joining us now, it is therapist Edward Yaeger, and he is part of the Yaeger Group, which you can check out on the web at yaegergroup.com. That is YAEGER group.com. Edward, so nice to have you with us here on the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Now, you are a therapist, but you are not my therapist or Romaine's therapist.
Well, maybe today you are. No, I'm kidding.
We'll see. I'll be Romaine's, not yours, Derek.
Oh, I like it.
Okay, well, because we already know each other, so that would probably be inappropriate,
Yeah,
unethical.
That would be a conflict of interest.
Okay, all right. I will accept that answer.
Well, I
Romaine,
love a good therapist, so I welcome your therapy, Edward.
Thank you. And I love a good conflict of interest.
Oh, who doesn't?
Well, I hope we have a nice mix of both during today's interview. Now, we are pre-recording this, but this is airing in and around Valentine's Day. So we thought it would be fun to talk about love languages, even though that is not something that you do or participate in, right?
It's not really. It's a little bit. It comes up all the time with my clients. And so I figure, why fight it? Embrace it. It does have some merit, right? It's sort of like, it's not unlike the Myers-Briggs. It's gaining a lot of traction. There's a lot of data, and it's certainly being monetized. So there is some validity to these.
Okay.
So for people who don't know, so the 5 love languages is something that was created by Dr. Gary Chapman. And basically, the short answer, although you'll correct me if you want to or need to, is essentially that the love languages are about the way that people give and receive love, like the ways in which that happens and how people prefer to give and receive love. Am I close?
You're really, really good. In fact, most people really just think about the way they prefer it versus how they give it, because they're thinking about what they want and not necessarily like how they naturally give things. Because for a lot of us, we just think, well, acts of service, which is one of the 5 love languages. Well, I just like doing that anyway. That's not a love language. That's just who I am. But to someone whose main love language is acts of service, like they see it as, caring and loving and kindness. And so there is a distinction.
Well, yeah. When I look at the 5 love languages, I certainly know what I'm good at, and I definitely know what I like to receive as like the one that I know what makes me feel good. And it does not always line up with who my wife is. Let me just start by saying that.
Well, yeah. So Derek, why don't you share what they are? I wanted you guys to take a little quiz, but I guess it'll take too much time. But if we
I've taken the quiz before, so I know what my act of kindness my love language is.
And I took it before this interview, so I could be prepared. But I have not shared my results with Romaine, and she has not shared them with me. So it is exciting suspense for all 3 of us here.
You 2 are on it.
Yeah, we do our best. Okay, so I can't even say that. I
you
can't.
can
I
go
can't
to
lie.
Sorry, go ahead.
I can't lie to a therapist. We don't always do our best. Okay.
No, but the listener can go to Family Center, spelled CENTRE.org, and then you can check out your own. And I'm not in any way affiliated with it. You can check out your own love language.
Yeah. So the five that I see are receiving gifts, acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, and quality time. So despite what you've seen on the internet where people have said my love language is pizza, pizza is not actually one of the 5 love languages.
Interesting. It should be. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I guess you could look at pizza as either receiving gifts or acts of service, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yes, yes.
I see.
Sometimes the way I do it, personal touch.
Mm. Wow.
I see it as quality time, but each their
Look,
own.
time with pizza is always quality time, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. So I guess we should each reveal what ours are, unless you want to take a guess. I mean, you know me better than Romaine.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, your online persona is definitely words of affirmation, but your real life persona, I don't know, maybe quality time.
Mm. That's what I would have guessed. Yeah, quality time.
That is correct. In doing the quiz, quality time was number 1, and words of affirmation were number 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
tied with physical touch. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Derek, do you want to take a guess on mine?
I think receiving gifts.
That is actually my number 2. I do love to receive a gift. But
you lied. You lied on your test.
No, I didn't. My number 1 is quality time as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love quality time. That's literally one of my favorite things.
It's interesting that you had gifts so high, because I've done this maybe like 50, 60 times.
Yeah.
And no one has gotten gifts as high as you have.
Let me tell you why.
One person.
I'm going to tell you why, and I'm pretty convinced this is true about me. I am the youngest of 8 children. And my father and my mother were not great with words of affirmation my entire life. I don't ever really remember them being super words of affirmation type of people. Physical touch, a little from my mom, definitely not from my dad. Acts of service, we were basically little slaves in our family, so I hate that. And I love gifts. I love getting gifts. I love giving gifts. I'm a very good gift giver. Gifts they mean something to me. And I think it's because I was the youngest of 8 children. And if you got a gift, it meant someone loved you.
No, that makes sense. Absolutely. Especially that many children. By the time they got to you, they must have been like,
poor.
Whatever.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or poorer.
Yeah. So yeah, I love receiving gifts. I can't even pretend like I don't. I love it so much. But I also really love giving gifts. It's kind of a two-way street.
That's the distinction, Romaine. How does this shake out versus giving love? And Derek, for you too, how do the acts of service or the love languages, is acts of service and quality time, are they the same in terms of getting versus giving?
So I think for me, yes. I definitely want to give a lot of quality time. I definitely love to give gifts. And I really love it when someone in my life makes the effort to give me quality time, whether it's in my friendships or in my partnerships. Like, I absolutely love the people who give me quality time. And I love to give it back to other people, but very specific people.
Only the A-list.
No, I do. I have a very small circle of friends, so I only give my super quality time to them.
So then not Derek. Got it.
Yeah. I give Derek so much time. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
He gets the most time of my time.
I actually think the fact that we have been doing this show together for 20 years and that quality time is number one for the two of us, I think has a lot to do with why we've been able to keep this together. I mean, I joke all the time that the real reason we've been able to be together for 20 years is that when we travel, we're very much alike on the road. Pretty low key travelers who are fine after a long day of just grabbing fast food and eating it alone in our hotel room. And so, and we tend to like the same food. So it makes it really easy for us to travel together, which, as I'm sure you know from therapy, like how traveling together can make or break a couple. Like you really,
oh yeah,
you learn a lot about your partner when you hit the road.
In my practice, I often advise people, even if they're driving like 2 miles away to dinner, to take separate cars.
That's funny.
But for me, because Romaine, obviously, she feels very defined by her childhood with her parents. And, I am too. But for me, growing up, it was really just, me and my sister. And we're very close in age. So it was always just the two of us together all the time and always having to share everything like 50-50 all the time. And that has really informed a lot of my relationship with Romaine because I'm very used to that dynamic. But both of my parents thought, still do, that I am just the greatest. And my dad all the time couldn't stop telling me how handsome I was and smart I was. He just was like marveled, dazzled by me all the time. Like even as an adult, like he just thought I was terrific. And my mom, same deal. Like just, it doesn't matter what we do. My mom is like, isn't that amazing? Isn't that great? So for me, like the words of affirmation thing is like, I don't really need that from strangers because I get a lot of that at home. And so I was never sort of wanting for that in life. But my parents divorced when I was quite young, and we split our time between the two of them. And my dad had more money than my mother. And my mom was concerned that the sort of financial disparity between the two of them would give him something of an unfair advantage.
I could see how it would.
Yeah, because, it's easy when you have money to like just buy a lot of things, and kids love things. And I certainly as a kid loved things. But my mom asked me about like how it was, when we came back from one of our trips, because we'd be gone for months at a time. And I said, well, Dad buys us things, but you take us places. Because my mom was always about she didn't have money. So it was always about an experience that didn't cost a lot of money. Spending the day in the park, flying a kite, having a little bit of a picnic or something, right? So it ended up being about the quality time. And as a kid growing up, faced between a pile of presents or time spent, in a park with a parent, I gravitated to the time spent in a park with a parent.
I would love both of them personally.
Yeah, but my sister gravitated to the presents, and that was her love language. Probably also is receiving gifts is probably higher on her list. Certainly on mine, because mine ended up being 0. So, I think that sort of informs a bit of that too.
Do you have a relationship with your sister?
Well, we are physically distant because she lives out in California with my mom, but I don't talk to her very much. Not because there's any like animosity or anything. We're not talk on the phone people. And even my mom, like I called her because her dog died. So I called her because she had posted about it online and we talked. And then 3 days later, it was Christmas. And she's like, you're calling me already? We just talked 3 days ago. So, we're not really talk on the phone people. And, because I have a radio show, if my mom is wondering how my life is going, she just, turns on the show. So it's not, and my mom's thing is like, well, nothing exciting is happening on a day-to-day basis. I don't have anything new to tell you. I'm not going to just sit on the phone for no reason. Even though, quality time is our thing, but we even still, I guess we use it sparingly.
Yeah. That sounds so, well, but also the love languages are mostly, well, if you take the exam, like the little quiz, they tend to be more romantic.
Right.
Obviously, they're not just romantic, but I wonder how that may differ, or how that plays out for you, Romaine, and your partner. And you're married, right?
Yes, I am. So my wife's love language is acts of service, or at least that's what she says. But because she doesn't service me nearly well enough. I'm thinking.
Yeah, Romaine wishes she was married to a combination prostitute and maid.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty true.
Who the fuck does?
I mean, well, I can't really say that. Iris definitely does do different types of acts of service. Like, I can see where she feels that is her love language. And when I look at her behavior, I can see that to be true. I just wish the acts of service that she did were more in line with what I wanted. Like, there's plenty of acts of service she could do that I would love. But those aren't always the ones she does. Her idea of acts of service is, oh, I took out the trash. Not, oh, I had great sex with you.
Right.
Right? So, like...
And do you think taking out the trash is, like, she would view that as, like...
Her showing me love? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
I know she thinks that. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, listen, we figure it out. It's, and I will say, I think the other thing that I think if I had to pick her number two, and I didn't ask her, but I think if I had to pick her to number two, it probably would be words of affirmation. And this is actually where I do think she excels. So sometimes the things I appreciate the most about her, like let's say shit hits the fan for us, right, as a couple, and it's just really bad. She always will come to me and say, we're in this together. And I don't know why, but there is a comfort in the way she says it that I'm like, okay, we're in this together. I'm not alone in this. We got this. And so I do think her words of affirmation, when she uses them, are very good.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Even if that wasn't a top two for you.
Yeah, but I mean, I never really heard it growing up, so it's kind of nice to hear it. Like when you get that kind of, positive kind of reinforcement and feedback.
You never get that from Derek.
Oh no, Derek and I tear each other down all the time, but we also lift each other up. I mean, that's the funny thing about Derek and I. Like, I think, we're constantly harassing each other, we're constantly teasing each other and things like that. But at the same time, Derek and I will be the first to defend each other if it ever came to that. We're the first to say positive things about the other person, even if it's like begrudgingly.
It's like you two are fiercely loyal, and you two are, it's like siblings. Like, you're allowed to tear each other down.
Yes.
But no one else is.
That's correct.
Unless they're part of, yeah.
Yeah, if someone came for Derek, they would have two of us to deal with, and they wouldn't like it.
Yeah. But also, I think that, we are this is a two-hander. So we kind of are constantly pulling the other person up, dragging the other person along, keeping the other person engaged. Like there's, we are responsible to each other because it's the only way to keep things going. And in some ways, it is because this is our job. Mm-hmm. We have other responsibilities to other people outside of the two of us. We both have talked about how, if we were actually married to each other, we might have gotten divorced a long time ago. It might have been more difficult, but because we have to be invested in each other beyond our personal feelings, we let things go more readily with each other because we have to.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah.
In a way that relationship couples might not feel the same investment of, I'm not going to let this go and I don't have to, kind of a thing.
I wholeheartedly agree with this because I always look at it as I think Derek and I's relationship is the healthiest relationship I have. And the reason is I can't hold on to shit. Like if we get into a fight, let's say Derek and I get into a fight. We have over the years.
Sure.
If we get into a fight, you got to let that shit go almost immediately. You yell, you scream, you have whatever words you're going to have, and then you get the fuck over it. Because at the end of the day, our job literally requires us to like each other and to have fun with each other and to hang out. And if we can't do that, we don't have a job. So in many ways, because I can hold a grudge better than anyone I fucking know. And,
Me too.
But I don't with Derek. I just have to let it go because that's what is required in this particular relationship. And for that, I think it's super healthy because I just don't hold on to shit. I just don't. I wish I could do that in all of my relationships, honestly.
And the show, I mean, you guys have been doing this that because it is your baby. It's grown up. It's got, and Derek or Romaine, like you're a parent as well, right?
Yes,
so
I am. Yeah.
There's certainly some distinctions between, a child and your show together. But when I work with couples who want to have a family, I ask them like who their baby is, like what is their way of connecting first before they bring in a child, because everything changes, as you know, Romaine, once you have a child. And they'll say, oh, well, we have a dog or we have a cat. And I'm like, no, but like what do you do together that, that you connect with, that is unique to you, that allows you to be creative or intimate, vulnerable, fun? Like, what is that? Because that's what's going to get you through in little glimmers, like when you bring a when you start a family, because the family takes over.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's sort of like your show, like the show takes over. So you better have that connection. You better have that baby first. And it really, a lot of people really sort of gravitate to that and think like, yeah, what the fuck do we have going on? We both work all day. We come home. We may or may not cook. And then we watch Netflix and go to bed and, rinse and repeat.
Yep. That is what a lot of couples are like. But it's not necessarily healthy.
But I think, as an outside observer of Romaine's marriage, if I may.
Oh, you can.
One of the things, because our job has different aspects to it than other people's work, because people's jobs can pull them away from their spouse or children, their relationship, because it can be time consuming. With ours, it really is about the sort of defined time of our work, which is in the evenings, 5 days a week. So that inhibits the ability to go to a movie or have dinner with people or, sort of a lot of Broadway shows, the kinds of things that lots of people are able to do in their free time, because we're sort of in the middle of that, our work schedule. But I think that especially became clear in Romaine's family when they had a baby, because so much that happens in a family happens in the evening, during the week. And so, not being able to be a part of that, when Romaine first said that she was pregnant, like this was my first concern of, our schedule is going to be not conducive to this. Like you're going to miss bath time, like you're going to miss, bedtime, like a lot. And that is going to be emotionally, a strain. But since we've started doing the show from home and we do our show, now that we're on our own, we have the ability to set our own schedule. Now with the show ending at 7:00 and Romaine being at home, she finally, after all of these years, has that evening
routine,
weekday family time that she missed for so long. And I can see in her the emotional difference that has made for her.
Yeah. I love it.
How old? How many? Do you have one?
It's too late now. She's too old.
I have one child. She's 16 and she's a monster.
Right, yeah.
I was just going to say like when you said after all these years he finally has like that's a scary. That's why I don't work with minors. Like they're scary.
Oh yeah, teenagers are
Girls,
horrible.
teenage girls,
oh God.
especially.
Yeah.
Reduced to tears.
Oh no, Romy is she's not so much a crier. She is a scream. So
I am.
Oh, you are. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, Romy is just mean when she wants to be, and our therapist really has her hands full.
Right.
Because we do. So Iris and I do couples counseling, and then our daughter also sees our counselor. Like we all see her basically. Like we see her as a couple, and then Romy goes and sees her independently. And occasionally there will be a family therapy session when shit really hits the fan, which is great because we have a relationship with the therapist. Romy has a relationship with the therapist. We all trust the therapist. Like our most.
You mentioned shit hitting the fan twice.
Yeah.
Give me an example.
I'll give you the most recent example. So.
Oh, God.
My daughter has been in Taekwondo for several years. It was something actually suggested by the therapist to help her learn how to control her rage and discipline and things like that. And so Romy started it. She was doing great. She got all the way to her red belt, which is basically there's like 3 mini steps between your red belt and your black belt. And when she got to her red belt, she wanted to quit. And as her parents, we said no. And she was furious with us because she didn't think it was fair and she wanted to be able to quit. And we're like, absolutely not. You've come this far. You have to finish what you started. And so it became a major fight at our house for months and months while we were trying to convince Romy that finishing what she started was important and she needed to do it. Finally, after us screaming at each other long enough, we decided to go to the therapist and let her help us wade through this. And so we all had to go have a big mean, horrible family session where we all, as parents, we were yelled at because we were so unfair. And then we were like, but you need to finish what you started. You needed something on your college resume. And eventually it all worked out. She got her black belt and, she's very proud of herself that she was able to get it. And she, earned some money in the process. But it was not a fun family situation for probably 4 to 6 months. It was constant fighting about this issue.
But she did it, which is awesome.
She did do it. And in the end, she was very proud of herself. And I think me in particular, Romy looks to me for the words of affirmation and the pride, like taking pride in her accomplishments. Because for whatever reason, she doesn't ever think that I'm proud of her, which it's very frustrating for me. But in this particular instance, I think that my words of affirmation and the pride I took in her achievement made her feel very good about herself.
Oh.
Yeah. So it all worked out. But, oh, man, what a process. And our poor therapist, like when we roll in as a family, she knows she's got her work cut out for her.
She's got to get ready.
Oh, yeah. Because, my daughter's got a personality almost as big as mine. So
oh no,
it's a lot. And then poor Iris is dealing with 2 of us, and she's stuck in the middle. So the dynamic gets real cray cray.
It's interesting. Like as a therapist, your days really aren't not so much like how many people you see each day. It's who you see each day.
Yeah.
That really sort of can tap, really drain you dry. And I have, I would say 10% of my roster or caseload are people like that. And not even because of disorders or, sort of really severe mental illnesses or disorders or symptoms. Just because they're really, they've got that personality, and I have to distribute them across the week. If I were to meet with more than one, I would be at 60% capacity in less than an hour.
Whoa. Well, I will say our therapist does say that we are her favorites. And by that I mean, but that I mean by
Yeah.
Iris and me, more so than Romy. She doesn't so much care about Romy, but she does love it when we come in. And I think and Derek will tell you, I go into therapy with some real work to be done. And you never know what the fuck's going to come out of my mouth at therapy. But for instance, I'll give you an example.
Therapy attack zone.
So there was a therapy session that I went to, and this is why I think our therapist loves us. So I came into the therapist, I sat down, I'm like, my therapist's name is Casey. I'm like, Casey, we have to talk about something very important today. And she goes, okay. And I'm like, we have to talk about the fact that my wife won't let me touch her butthole. And Casey was like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, listen, I know this sounds stupid. I said, but every time we're wrestling around or whatever, if my hand goes anywhere near my wife's butt crack, she freaks out and clenches her ass cheeks so tight and says, don't touch my butthole. And I'm like, I get that it's a butthole, whatever. I'm like, but I want to talk about why she's so freaked out that I'm going to touch her butthole when I'm not even trying to touch her butthole. I'm like, it seems to me there's a real trust issue here that I want to talk about. And that was what ultimately I wanted to talk about it. But of course, my presentation is to always entertain. And so my therapist thinks I'm crazy.
Well, because
So how did you unpack, so to speak?
Well, so the therapist was like, all right, Iris, why don't you want Romaine to touch your butthole? And then Iris kind of basically explained that, for her, it's a hygiene thing and she's freaked out. And then we had to talk about the trust thing, that she didn't trust that if I touched her butthole, I wouldn't put my finger in there. And I'm like, why would I put my finger in your butthole? Unless we were having sex, and then maybe.
Exactly.
But we weren't having sex. We were just fucking around. So we just had to, talk it out. And, I had to reassure Iris that I'm not going to stick my finger in her butthole randomly. And then she had to learn to, trust that, I will do what I say. But it was a funny therapy session, but it was important.
Like me, my husband every night. No, I like it. It's a great this would be fun, but therapy is not always fun.
No,
it's work, and so I try to tell the people I work with, I don't want you. If you're looking forward to therapy, that means that you just want to dump onto me, and that there's only so much content I need to hear. And if you dread therapy, then that maybe we're doing a lot of intense work. It has to be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, shit, I know, I need to do this, but I don't want people to dread it, but I also don't want them to think that it's fun. If they're looking forward to it, that just means that they're ready to catch me up on their day or, vent about something that is really not, not that germane to what we're working on.
I mean, when Iris and I first started therapy as a couple, we had reached a point where our relationship was in a real danger zone. And, and I told my wife, I said, listen, if I go to therapy, because I'd done therapy prior to this, she had never done therapy before because she was military and it was discouraged and all that crap. And I said, listen, if we're going to do this, you got to know we're going to do the fucking work. And, sometimes throughout the week, there would be things that would come up that I would just kind of make note of. I want to make sure we talk about this thing in therapy. Derek would call it my surprise attack. But I would come in with a list of very important things to me from the week where I'd be like, I want to talk about why this happened and Iris's reaction to it, or my reaction to this thing that happened, or how we dealt with it together or didn't deal with it. And I went in with we're going to fucking do the work. We're going to talk about the hard shit. Because if you don't talk about the hard shit, why the fuck are you there?
It's a waste of time otherwise.
Right. You got to go in ready to talk about the shit that makes you uncomfortable, the shit that makes you cry, the shit that's just going to make it, you got to let it out. You got to work it through. What we ultimately learned, and our therapist was excellent about this, is we learned we were communicating with each other, but we weren't hearing what the other person was saying. So while we were saying things, the other person heard something totally different than what you say. So I'd say something to Iris in therapy, and the therapist would be like, now, Iris, what did you just hear? And Iris would say what she heard, and it was totally different than what I said. And so we had to learn how to interpret each other better because we were fucking missing it. Both of us were missing it left and right. And so that was probably the best thing we took away from therapy, was how to communicate with each other in a way that the other person understood it. That was hard.
100%. that's probably the number one issue. Yeah, I would say that's the number one issue. In addition to safety, trust, and commitment, which are sort of like the pinnacles. But I sort of piss off some of my couples by sharing that they're literally saying the same thing, but in their own languages, and they're misinterpreting what the other is saying.
Yeah.
And so when I actually boil it down, I'm like, you're both saying the same thing. They're like, fuck, we are. And it's because of this, sort of, like you said, this misinterpretation, because there's certainly communicating going on. It's just not effective.
Yeah.
Well, now, before Romaine sucks up all the last of our time, because she will, about her own experience of therapy and everything, I did want to ask you about the gay couple dynamic, because I am curious about this, what your point of view as a therapist is, Edward. But because I always think of, it's so much easier as a gay couple because you have two people of the same gender. So some of the power dynamics that men and women experience in relationships that can create tension, a woman making more money than a man can sometimes bring up issues in a relationship like that, where in a gay relationship, you don't have those sort of old ideas. But I wonder about how you perceive some of the gender norms and expectations that can be out there for men and women, how that plays out positively or negatively in gay couples. Like, what are the benefits? What are the pitfalls? What do you see?
They're really, you'd be surprised. In most cases, I'm not saying this is healthy, but it becomes heteronormalized. And one of the things I do early in my couples or polycule work is, that's what they call it now. It's not throuple, I mean, we call it whatever the clients want to call it, but after couples, it's polycules. We do roles, meaning what roles have you established for yourselves or just taken on for yourselves. So there's the provider role, or the parents, even though they don't have kids, one is a little older, or in some cases they're siblings. And it's really no different from the straight couples or straight polycules that I work with. In New York area, it's a little different because everyone's type A. So even the people who are maybe a little more passive, right, are, so it's an interesting sort of microcosm. But in general, those roles, because it's it's going back to your show, you have to just get shit done. So in these relationships, someone has to be the planner. If you have two planners or two bottoms, it's just not going to work.
Well, because we do a lot of group cruises and everything, and all the time I say with couples, I only want to talk to the decider, because when it comes to things like a dream vacation, there is a dreamer in a relationship, and then there is the decider in the relationship. It's I only want to talk to the decider, the person who is they're saying yes or no is ultimately going to be whether or not you go on this thing. So don't waste my time, dreamers. I only want to talk to the decider. Right.
But you just have to be careful because, then, again, in the New York area, they're both deciders, or they're all deciders, or, they're deciders and dreamers. But no, for the most part, I mean, the biggest one, I guess, would be money. It's always sex and money. Yeah. Those are the two that we start out with. And then obviously there's stuff, a lot of stuff underneath. But income disparities or income, that's a big one. But that plays out with straight couples and polycules as well.
Well, that's one thing that Romaine and I have in common. We both would love to date somebody who made considerably more money than we do.
Oh, man, that would have been nice.
What a dream.
Yeah. my husband
But I
and
know not everybody is like that, but it can bring up
No.
feelings for people for sure.
Yeah. No, my husband and I like looking for a third with money. But like,
I love
real
that Grindr
money.
headline. Yes. All right. Well, Edward, I'm so glad we had this time together.
Absolutely.
And this has been a lot of fun. And I appreciate you sharing a bit of your quality time with us here today.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that neither of you asked me what my love languages are. But,
Oh,
you know,
no.
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
come
that's
back.
because we're selfish and horrible. What is
Well,
it?
and also you're a therapist.
No. I love you guys. I really
No, wait. What is
appreciate it.
what is your love language? Don't run away.
It's quality time.
Quality time. Oh, okay. Is that the
Yeah.
most common one?
No.
Oh.
I mean, it's up there, but no, it is a common one. It's not always the first one, but yeah,
Okay.
it's up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Makes sense.
people like quality time, and by people I mean the three people in this conversation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Edward Yaeger, thanks so much for spending time with us. We really appreciate it. Well, there you have it. The end of another perfect episode of Derek and Romaine. And if you want more great fun, go to dnrstudios.com and subscribe to get our show every day. And don't forget, for DNR Plus subscribers, you can use the DNR Cast app for iPhone, available now in the App Store.